Hey guys, I just wanted to work out some of your practice problems from 6.4 and 6.5. I know we're on spring break next week, so you guys can at least check over your 6.4, 6.5 work. The following week, we're going to try and get back on schedule with our Zoom meetings, so I will still upload my videos like normal, and then you guys can log in when we have our days that we meet. I think it's Monday, Thursday. And that's when you can ask me questions. We can talk about how things are going to work, but we will resume testing and quizzing, so we can try and stay on track as much as we can. So this first section, when it says find the exact value of sine, cosine, tangent, given a certain number. Guys, remember, when we talk about this, we have sine, cosine, and tangent. For sine, cosine, and tangent. We're restricted to certain places on the unit circle we can look. If they talk about sine, we can look in the first and fourth quadrant, and tangent, first and fourth. And when we talk about cosine, we're just looking up here on the top. So that's going to help us answer these questions about the exact value that they're looking for. So like in number 3, the question says, what is the exact value of sine? It would be 1/2. Well, sine, remember, is our y value. So where is the y value? 1/2 for sine. So that means I have to look in either the first quadrant or the fourth quadrant. So I look over here. Where is my y value? Positive 1/2. It's going to be right here at pi over 6. So my answer would be pi over 6. So if I look at B, I want cosine root 3 over 2. Well, remember, cosine is the x value. Cosine, where do we look? We look in the top, first and second quadrant. So where on my unit circle is the x value negative root 3 over 2? And it's right there at 5 pi over 6. So your answer would be 5 pi over 6. Where is the tangent? Negative 1. Well, tangent is y value over x. That would have to be an ordered pair that's the exact same. So it'd be root square root of 2 over 2, comma square root 2 over 2. And I want it to be negative 1. So on tangent, remind yourself where you can look, only in first and fourth. So where is my ordered pair? We want our value to be negative 1. So in the first quadrant, I have positive root 2 over 2, root 2 over 2. And in the fourth quadrant, I have positive root 2, negative root 2 over 2. So this is the one I'm looking for because I want my tangent when I put y over x to be negative 1. So that would be 7 pi over 4. All right. So again, like if they asked you for the sine value to be negative root 3 over 2. Well, sine is y, remember. So I look on my unit circle. Sine, I can only look in first and fourth. So where on the unit circle is my y value negative root 3 over 2? Well, y being negative root 3 over 2 is right here at 5 pi over 3. 5 pi over 3. Everybody with me? Cosine, that's x value. Where is the x value? Negative root 2 over 2. Well, cosine, I can look in first and second. So I look for the x value that's negative root 2 over 2. That's at 3 pi over 4. 3 pi over 4. So, why am I? Yeah, we're good. Again, like here, where's cosine? Cosine's x value. Where's cosine positive 1? Well, remember, we look for cosine. We look in the top. So where is my x value positive 1 in the first quadrant? It's right here at 0. So it would either be 0 degrees. You can call that, we're going to say 0 degrees. You can also call that 0 pi, however you want to look at it. If we come over here and they're asking for approximate values of each expression rounded to 5 decimals, this is where we have to use our calculator, and we're going to be in degrees and radians. So if I have I'm going to do second sine of 0.45. That gives me about 26.7. 4368. And then if I was going to change to radians, in radians I would be at 0.4667. So you just have to be aware of if your calculator is in radians or degrees and just use the buttons on your calculator. But in this case, when we're trying to find the angle, this is where I want you guys to use your calculators and use our trig functions that you guys are familiar with to figure out what your answers are. So in this case, here is my theta. They gave me theta. From theta, I know that 10 is my hypotenuse, and I know that 6 is the opposite side. So when they ask you for the angle measure, guys, this is when we use our arc sine, arc tangent, arc cosine, or second sine, second tangent, second cosine. So I would say that the sine of theta is 6/10. And the reason I use sine is because sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So in my calculator, I would hit sine -1, and I would put 6 divided by 10, and I would hit enter. Let's see what we get. And I get that the sine of theta is 0.01047. I'm looking for an angle measure. Guys, that does not make sense that your angle measure is 0.01047. So this is when we hit second sine, and you plug this in. Or you could just do it from the beginning like I did here. If you just hit sine and get this, then you have one more step. But if you just do it all at the beginning, you would get the angle measure is theta is about 36.87 degrees. 36.87 degrees. Now, that's how we were going to solve these problems. Remember, if we're looking for an angle measure, you have to use arc sine, arc cosine, arc tangent, or the negative sine -1, cosine -1, tangent -1. So first, get your problem set up. Here's my theta. Across from theta, this is my opposite side. Right here next to theta is my adjacent side. They don't give me any information about the hypotenuse. So what trig function uses opposite and adjacent? That's tangent. So the tangent of theta would be 9/13. In my calculator, I'm going to hit arc tangent, tangent -1, 9/13, and I'm going to get an answer. And I get that my angle measure is about 34.70 degrees. Same thing here. Here's my theta. What did they give me? They gave me opposite, and they gave me hypotenuse. So this is going to be sine. So I'm just going to go ahead and say sine -1. I'm looking for the angle. I know I have to use arc sine. I'm going to put 4/7 in my calculator. So hit second sine, 4 divided by 7, and you get 34.85. So about 34.85 degrees. All right, the takeaway from this, ladies and gents, is if you're looking for angles, and I talked to you about this the last video, you use arc sine, arc cosine, arc tangent. That's the same as inverse sine, sine -1, inverse cosine, cosine -1, or inverse tangent. Make sure you guys are using that in order to find the angle measures. Not positive. Now, if we talk about these problems, these are the problems where we're talking using the law of sines. We're solving triangles. So here, in number 3, they're asking us to solve for the x value that they gave us. So I'm going to look right here and see what I have, okay? In the law of sines, it's a proportion. You need to know an angle measure and its corresponding side length. That's how we figure out what's missing. So I look right here and I have, I have this proportion. I have that the sine of 98.4 over 376. That's the proportion that they gave me. So I need to have x and the angle here that's missing. Well, they didn't give me that angle, but they kind of did. Because how many degrees are in a triangle? 180. So if you add up 98.4 plus 24.6, you get 123, and then if you subtract that from 180, you get that angle C is 57 degrees. So you can say sine of 57 over x. Then we just cross multiply. So I have 376 times the sine of 57 equals x times the sine of 98.4. Divide both sides by the sine of 98.4. And we can figure out what x equals. So x is about, let's figure that out. So x is about 318.76 units long, however they say. So again, I have the information I need for number 5. Let's work on it. Let's find that missing angle. I don't know what that missing angle is, but I do know that there's 180 degrees in a triangle. So if I add 52 and 70, I get 122, and I subtract that from 180, I know that angle C is 58 degrees. So I have a proportion right here between an angle and its side. So I have the sine of 58 over 26.7. So that's going to go with sine 52 over x. Now we cross multiply and solve. So x times the sine of 58 equals 26.7 times the sine of 52. Divide both sides by the sine of 58. Sine 58. And I get x is about 24.81 units long, however long that is. Again, with triangle here, they've already given me a side and its corresponding angle. So I can say that the sine of 120 over 45 equals, I don't know what theta is, so we'll say sine of theta over what corresponds with theta? 36. So let's cross multiply and solve. So I have 45 times the sine of theta equals 36 times the sine of 120. Divide both sides by 45. So I get the sine of theta is 0.69282. And I think to myself, wait a second, that doesn't make any sense. An angle measure is that tiny. Well, guys, remember, we're looking for an angle measure. That means I need second sine or arc sine. So in your calculator, hit second sine, arc sine, however you need to do it. So you hit second sine of the answer, and you get the angle theta is about 43.85 degrees. Remember, if we're looking for side lengths, we use sine, cosine, tangent. If we are looking for, excuse me, if we're looking for an angle, we use our arc sines. So in this case, guys, I'm just going to do one of each of these so we can make sure that we understand what's going on here. If I do, let's do number 17. Okay, 17 tells me that I have a triangle. I'm just going to draw an arbitrary triangle, A, B, and C. This is number 17. And they tell me that angle B is 29 degrees, so 29 degrees. They tell me that angle C is 51 degrees, 51 degrees. And then they tell me that side B is 44 degrees. So across from angle B is 44. They want me to solve the triangle. That means I have to find out what angle A is. I need to find out what side A is. And I need to find out what side C is. So they've given me a proportion already. I know that there's 180 degrees in a triangle. So if I have 29 plus 51, I get 80. When I subtract 180 minus 80, I get this angle. It happens to be 100 degrees. Okay, good. So we know that. Awesome. Now let's figure out, I have a proportion. I can say that the sine of 29 over 44 equals, let's find A. So I can say sine of 100 over side A. I don't know what it is. So I multiply 44 times the sine of 100 equals A times the sine of 29. Divide both sides by the sine of 29. And I get A equals, A is about 89.38 units, however long. And then I say, okay, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to find out, I'm going to use the same proportion, sine 29 over 44. And I want to know how long side C is. So I'm going to use angle C, sine 51 over C. Cross multiply, 44 times the sine of 51 equals C times the sine of 29. Divide both sides by sine 29. Divide by sine 29. And I get C is about 44 times the sine of 51 divided by sine 29. 70.53 units. So we solved that triangle. Now guys, when we use the law of sines, you're going to have to make sure, have to check to make sure that there aren't two triangles present. So the way that we do that, here's my triangle 1, here's triangle 2. Okay, they gave me 51 and 29. If they give you two angles are already present and you solve for the third one, then you know that a second triangle cannot exist. So let's look at question 21. All right, I'm going to draw my triangle that they told me, A, B, and C for 21. And they tell me that A, so the side across from angle A, is 20. They tell me that C, so the side across from C, is 45. And they tell me that angle C is 38 degrees. Okay, so in this time, they didn't give me as much information about the angles. They gave me more information about sides. So this is where we got to be careful. We have to make sure that there aren't two triangles present. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. But the first thing I'm going to do is identify the fact that they gave me that the sine of 38 over 45 is a proportion I can start off with because it's the angle and the side of C. So I'm going to use that, and I'm going to say, okay, well, the sine of B, and then what's the side across from B? Oh, we don't know that yet. We got to do that one. Sorry. We'll do sine A. Sine of A over side A is 20. So we'll cross multiply. 45 times the sine of A equals 20 times the sine of 38. Divide both sides by 45. And sine of angle A is about 0.27362. Guys, that's not an angle measure. We need to hit second sine in our calculator and put in that 2.27362. Uh-oh, it says math error. What did I tell you if there's a math error? That means I did something wrong on my calculator? No, I didn't do something wrong on my calculator. That means that this triangle does not exist. There is not a triangle with the given criteria that they gave me. So this does not exist. So you would say triangle does not exist. Now, guys, we are going to work more on this before we take our test or a quiz or anything like that. So make sure that you are working through these problems, even if you haven't done it. Go ahead and do them now. Make sure you get them submitted. If you don't want to work over the break, I understand that, but maybe this weekend try and get it done. And make sure you're keeping up with things because we are going to move along and we are going to expect you guys to stay on top of things. So stay safe, stay inside, and we'll talk soon.